but people love to stick their neck into like hornets' nests.
Welcome back to She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, the superhero comedy show with no heroism and no comedy. I'm only coming back to it for the sake of completeness, because this show is god-awful. And left to my own devices, I won't be watching these last few episodes at all. I probably should just move on and forget that She-Hulk even exists, if just for the sake of my own mental health. And because, even when the show was on, nobody seemed to care enough about it to watch my review of it. So if you're one of the happy few that does, welcome and God bless you. We start off with a recap of the previous episodes and, oh great, Jamila Jamil's coming back as Titania. Imagine my joy. The Marvel theme tune at this point is frankly just painful. When I hear it, I don't expect anything good any longer. It's instead like tasting cold ashes in my mouth. The episode opens up with a bad magician called Donny Blaze doing a show. He's not getting very good crowd reception, so he creates a portal like the ones from Doctor Strange and sends a woman in the crowd into another dimension as a trick. She eventually ends up in Camotage in Wong's TV room. And what to say about Wong? She-Hulk has actually made me kind of dislike Benedict Wong, and I liked him before he started doing Marvel films. I even like the actor in this same role, in Doctor Strange. The same character in this series seems to bear no resemblance to the character that I liked. And what makes this worse is that Benedict Wong can be funny. He was funny in the IT Crowd, but he does need good material to work with. Tatiana Maslany comes along to say, everybody loves Wong. It's like giving the show Twitter armour for the week. And I'm not liking her at all in this role. Maybe I should try drinking whatever Kool-Aid Marvel gave to Simon Pegg before he praised this tripe. The showrunners, I fear, also spend far too much time on Twitter or thinking about Twitter, and none of the humour lands for me. 4 episodes in and not a single laugh or even a single smile. Wong hires She-Hulk to use her silky legal skills to stop Donny Blaze from performing any more dangerous magic. And also, Jen signs up for a dating app. And what the hell is even that?
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
This is supposed to be a Marvel superhero show, so why are we instead getting Jen's dating stories? Is this what the writers' lives are like in reality? Living on Twitter and getting rejected by men? The show is just anything other than have to write a superhero story. And why were they even given this project? It seems like they have no interest in the character they begin to write and perform and seem to want to write something completely different. So there was discussion because some people thought that She-Hulk was a rip-off of Ally McBeal. But according to Jessica Gow, Better Call Saul and Fleabag were inspirations, not Ally McBeal. And here's a strange idea. How about your inspiration for writing a She-Hulk Series B? The source material. Strange and outlandish idea, I know. How about you adapt the story of the character that was popular enough to justify you writing a series about her in the first place? Instead, we have a series being written, like this one, like The Witcher, like The Rings of Power, where the people writing the show seem to have an open contempt for the material they're supposed to be adapting. So instead, She-Hulk Attorney at Law generates headlines like this. She-Hulk director wanted to make a sex-positive show that kids could also watch. And what do you mean, sex-positive, that kids could also watch? I suppose it depends on how you're defining kids. So that begs the question, how are they defining kids? The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child defines child as a human being below the age of 18 years. Seeing as this show has a rating of TV-14, the vast majority of kids shouldn't be watching it in the first place, and the way sex is presented in the show, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. Going to bed with someone a few hours after you met them on Tinder, as shown in this episode, is not something I'd describe as a healthy approach to sex. The article goes on to say, She-Hulk is easily one of the horniest shows currently streaming on Disney+, and for that, one of the most refreshing. But Koro says that her goal was still to deliver a show that could play to a broader, youth-skewing Marvel audience. The director says She-Hulk is the first show she's ever really worked on where she was receiving voicemails from 9-year-olds, begging to hear what happened next. And her parents and friends, who normally didn't watch Marvel movies, were hooked on She-Hulk. There was a greater responsibility and challenge to make She-Hulk be everything for everyone without losing its commentary. We wanted to make it realistic and about a woman navigating sex, and also make it something that everybody can enjoy, including children, because there is an element of the show that's really fun for young people, she says. And if there were ever a collection of words that I don't want to see together in a paragraph, they would be horniest and 9-year-olds. Who was this made for and why? And what the hell has happened to Hollywood? Hollywood used to make great movies. Unforgiven, The Sting, Aliens, Predator, Jaws, Halloween. Now we're just getting copies of copies of copies. And like photocopying, the quality seems to be going down with every new copy. Now we have terrible quality, terrible entertainment, and multiple shows for some reason trying to sexualise children. And why are you doing that exactly, Hollywood? It's no surprise Roman Polanski kept winning awards, huh? So Wong is taking the magician to court to stop him using the magic. The magician trained in camouflage and is using it to make money on stage. And he's a menace. He sent a woman to a hell dimension as part of his show, and She-Hulk now needs that extremely annoying woman as a witness in this case. Give me strength. The hell dimension is looking justified at this point. It feels like I've been sent to a hell dimension watching this. Madison gives evidence, and it's difficult to believe that any of this conduct would pass in court. Why does Wong not just deal with this on his own? Take the sling ring and put the magician into another dimension where he can do no harm. Wong asks Jen, "Can I send Donny to the mirror dimension? He probably won't even die." And Jen responds, "That would ruin our case." And who the hell cares about the case? If you send Donny away, the case won't matter any longer. How about you just take the sling ring so he can't open portals? The point was getting him to stop before he caused a disaster. The point wasn't winning a case. Meanwhile, Jen is getting no hits on her dating app as herself, so she puts up a new account of her as She-Hulk. This time, she instantly gets loads of hits. And what the hell is that face? So she goes on some dates as She-Hulk. One guy and her talk for about 30 seconds. He tells her that he's in medicine. A paediatric oncologist, he says. He wants to know about her, he says, and offers to split some fries. And that 30 seconds is enough for her. She's going to go home with him. And just so there's no misunderstanding, I think this is a bad way for anyone to behave, not just women. As far as she knows, he could be lying. He could be horrible. He could have AIDS. You could be one split condom away from a horrific illness. Maybe at least find out if this is someone you actually like before you jump into bed with them. Maybe try a walk in the park together first. See if this is someone you can talk to. It's nice and public, so you can leave if it doesn't go well. Maybe give it 3 or 4 dates before you try and ride him like a pony. But that's all it takes for her. For him being interested in listening to her talking endlessly about herself and having no personality of his own and wanting to split some fries with her. If this is a self-insert, God help the woman that wrote it. This is just sad.
Could you make him a cup of tea, please, Stephanie?
But people love to stick their neck into like hornets' nests.
She-Hulk, attorney at law, and where were we? She-Hulk had just offered to go home with a man she met 30 seconds ago because he offered to split some fries with her, and she thinks he looks hot. And serious talk for a moment. You are worth more than this. Be you a man, a woman, or whatever you consider yourself to be, you're worth more than this. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You're worth going to bed with someone that at bare minimum actually cares about you. Not just someone who will pretend to care for half an hour to get you into bed and half a portion of fries. My thoughts on equality have changed a little over time, you see. Men and women are clearly very different, and I can't help but feel we do a disservice to both in trying to treat them as if they're the same. Equality may be like having a son and a daughter and getting them both a birthday present, but knowing that a Barbie doll is not what the son wants, even if that's what the daughter did want. Is that clear enough? Maybe not. But you see, getting them both a Barbie doll would be perfectly equal, but most sons wouldn't be happy with it. And that, I fear, is what society has done to women. Sex has become more egalitarian over the last 50 or 60 years, and it was supposed to make women more happy. But when polled, women's life satisfaction and happiness has gone through the floor. And this kind of hookup culture doesn't seem to be delivering what it takes for women to be happy in their own lives. This show seems to bear very little resemblance to the original run of the Savage She-Hulk from 1980. And I know this because I went back and read them for background research for these videos, which sadly may mean that I did more research than Jessica Gao did in writing it. And She-Hulk in those issues bears little resemblance to the character from this show. This, for example, is issue 5 from 1980. This is the cover with She-Hulk fighting a giant robot snake. And page 1, boom, she's holding up a suspension bridge so civilians can get away. Issue 6, she has a showdown with Iron Man. Issue 7's cover, swamp demons. Okay, so that turned out to be a bad issue, but it had a catchy cover. That's the hook, just swamp demons. Cut to the TV series, and instead of fighting Iron Man, She-Hulk goes on Tinder dates and twerks with Megan Thee Stallion. And instead of fighting purple swamp demons, She-Hulk now has arguments with Twitter trolls. It's hard not to notice the, if anything, entitled mindset of many Hollywood progressives, who feel entitled to butcher and change other people's art and characters and the cultural history of other countries, to remake it in their image, remake it in a way to suit them. And they didn't even stop there. It didn't even stop before it came to airbrushing the actual history of other countries. So Hollywood helps itself to Danish culture, to German culture, to English culture, to Norwegian culture, and acts like it's theirs now, and acts like it's all A-OK that they're doing it. It's a neo-colonialist mindset. And it's offensive. We end up with films like U571, a film that portrayed the story of a World War II German submarine boarded by American submariners to capture an Enigma cipher machine, with the slight problem that the plot attracted substantial criticism. British sailors from HMS Bulldog had captured the first naval Enigma machine from U-110 in the North Atlantic in May 1941, 9 months before the USA even entered the war in December 1941. And it seems to be the endeavours of this British crew that were appropriated and given to Americans in this film. The inaccuracies reached right to the House of Commons in the UK, where the then Prime Minister, Tony Blair, agreed that this film was an affront to British sailors. This is literal stolen valour. And codebreakers at Bletchley Park had allegedly cracked the code of Enigma roughly a year before the film was even set, after a multinational effort to break the code. In reality, the real submarine U571 was never captured. It was sunk by an Australian plane off Ireland in 1944, with the loss of all hands. For more examples of Hollywood doing this type of thing, also see Braveheart, also see Argo, Also see the Netflix series The Vikings, where the writers race and gender swapped real historical Norwegian ruler Jarl Hakon, and it goes on and on and on, and it's bloody offensive. And with that kind of entitlement, we end up with this, taking a Stan Lee character that was originally a heroic and selfless campaigner for justice, and she ends up in this version of her, lacking heroism, selfish, greedy, short-sighted and an idiot. And worst of all for the writers of She-Hulk Attorney at Law, she seems to be a self-insert. And when as a writer you do a self-insert and she ends up as a drunken, selfish skank, it may be time to have a good long look in the mirror and re-evaluate your life. This is a character that had meaning to some people. This character had fans long before this series was a thing. She's had fans since 1979. A character that was originally quite feminist in 1980 and yet still was accepted by an overwhelmingly male audience is now twerking with Megan Thee Stallion. And this is how feminism has progressed since 1979. Progressed in inverted commas. And yet the creatives have the temerity to claim that the poor reception is due to sexism. 42 years later, and it appears you've not only not broken new ground, you've gone backwards and degenerated. I mean, really, what's in it for Jen in saving the world? Well, for starters, she lives in the world too. The high-paying job that she seems to care so much about is not going to be much use if there's no planet left, is it? No planet, and she won't have anywhere to buy box wine and act like a skank. Meanwhile, after the judge delayed the case, Donny Blaze is at it again at another magic show, where this time he accidentally opens a portal to hell, and demons fill the entire theatre. Donny panics and goes to Wong for help when he realises he can't solve it on his own. Meanwhile, Jen and her date have got back to her place and are sitting on the couch talking. She's telling him about her job and how she has to be She-Hulk when she's at the office. And he says, "Tell me more about how you felt." And again, if this is a self-insert, the person that wrote this is tragically egocentric, just wanting a man to fawn over them and give them attention while not reciprocating in any way at all. It's not a meeting of two equals or would-be partners, it's all about her, him agreeing with everything she says and asking her to say more things for him to agree with. If the writers are single, it's hard to imagine why. I would have thought they could find someone they adore as easily as looking in any mirror. And is this supposed to be the humour in the series? Having a character in She-Hulk that they're trying to write as feminist that in reality seems to envy men. The writers delight in belittling and emasculating the male characters and do it repeatedly in humiliating the men by having them act in a stereotypically feminine way. The whole endeavour of She-Hulk Attorney at Law as a show comes across to me as dripping in hate. The writers seem to hate men, envy men, and yet simultaneously want men, while viewing women as being less than men, and their fantasy ideal woman is one who acts like a man. Wong tries to get Jen to help with the demons, but she's too busy with her date, trying to get laid. After trying to phone multiple times, Wong opens a portal into Jen's flat to get her, and finally she relents. They need to fight the demons back and push them into a portal, and as she starts to fight, She-Hulk says, "You know these are technically billable hours." They just never allow her to be heroic for even a minute. She never thinks about anyone but herself. After the demons are beaten, Jen threatens Donny with one of them to get him to agree to her and Wong's demands, and then Wong sends her home back to her date. Back at her house, her date is lying on the couch reading a book on feminism. She lands straddling him and then carries him to bed in the way a man would carry a petite woman, and mercifully the camera cuts away. Jen's date gets up in the morning and Jen has made breakfast, and his actions are frankly bizarre. He seems unhappy that She-Hulk is not there, which in some ways is understandable. He went on a date with She-Hulk, not Jen. She's changed and looks completely different to the woman he was interested in. She also acts different, but she can change back into She-Hulk. The woman that he liked is still there. Or was he still going to leave, even if She-Hulk had met him in the morning? If he liked She-Hulk, surely he would ask to maybe see She-Hulk again. So I can only conclude he would have left, even if it was She-Hulk there. Either way, it seems kind of dumb to love and leave an emotionally erratic Hulk that could literally tear you in half. I'm just not sure for me that the sex would justify the risk. The notion of a normal human having sex with someone with super strength is frankly a bad idea. People tend to get involuntary muscle contractions during sex, and this being the case, what is the result going to be if this happens to She-Hulk while he's inside her? I'm not going to get too graphic, but in my head, I'm picturing a cigar cutter. Or maybe that scene from The Boys where a Superwoman got overexcited and accidentally crushed that guy's head. Jen then gets someone at the door, and the man at the door presents a summons from Titania, who's copyrighted the name She-Hulk and is now suing Jen. The post-credit scene is more of Wong and Madison being completely annoying.
Could you make me a cup of tea, please, Stephanie?